Happy Sunday, Smite fans. You are watching the Smite Challenger Circuit. My name is Dolson.
Uh, did you forget my name? Yeah, I'm Mifflin, and I'm also here.
Literally, it was a tap-in, Miff. It was such a tap-in, and alright, you know what? You're right. Miff's here with me, and we're watching the SCC on this fine Sunday. We got the SPL coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, so plenty to look forward to there. But Miff, North American SCC, just as well as the EU SCC, has proven that it's very competitive. We've got a great matchup today, the Sturdy Artisans versus the Fishies. That should be a great one.
It should be, man. I mean, anytime you get to watch the Sturdy Artisans play, it's going to be a treat from the North American SCC, but I've been a Sino stan for too long, so maybe we talk about just about anything else until I can no longer.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, we got a good, healthy split of games here this weekend in the SCC. A couple 2-1s, a couple 2-0s. So maybe another 2-1 to kind of balance things on out here. Sturdy Artisans looking to keep pace to the Tiburones up top 3-0. Those Sturdy Artisans going into this matchup, and then a bit of a drop-off. After that, the Fishies 1-2, everyone else beneath that 1-3. So some pretty interesting standings implications here. You either have two teams at 4-0 and then a bunch of teams down low at 1-3, or we finally get some parity between the first, second, third, and fourth ranked teams all in here. Sturdy Artisans, though, Mifflin, you bring it up. Sino's on this squad. Stuart, Yannick, Pagon, Sino, Relentless One. No surprise that this team is undefeated so far.
And Dave, you only repeated one player's name inside of that whole little tangent there, and it was Sino, and I think you're right to do it. I can hold it no longer. We can only talk about Sino going forward because he is the man who is revolutionizing the jungle. I know Pagon's on the screen right now. I need everyone in the chat to go ahead and ignore that because there's a dude out there who's playing Osiris in the jungle. He's playing Chalk in the jungle, Eset, Athena. It seems like he has got an aversion to playing anything in the Assassin tree, and it's always a treat to watch. But I guess it's not just one man that makes a team, so you have to at least give some credit to the rest of the boys over there. Stuart, in particular, a phenomenal ADC who's playing incredibly aggressively off the back of some fantastic setup from Ionic, one of the most veteran supports inside the entirety of the SCC, and then a couple of other pretty nutso-butso players as well.
Miff, you and I are literally together all day today. We're desk for this, we're casting the bolts and the Valkyries together, and then we're on desk for the Leviathans and the Kings. If we're already ignoring what's on the screen, I don't know, we got a long day ahead of us, I think. Here's some highlights of Sino down the stretch. Now, this is a team where it feels like everyone is able to play their role, and I love seeing some of the creativity that Sino sprinkled into the SPL last year. It's starting to trickle its way into some of the game plans that we're seeing down at this level. Maswell highlight here on this one, so depending on what we got going out of there in the mid lane, something maybe interesting to look forward to. But on the other side, Miff, the Fishies, you know, a squad that we've seen at the SCC level for a little while here, haven't quite gotten themselves into a consistent winning play here yet. I mean, they're what, 1-3, so, or 1-2, potentially 1-3 after this matchup. So they've gotten a win, a couple of losses. This is a squad where Renjaru, Oceans, Nehu, Kirmi, and Chronic. So absolutely some names on this team that you should recognize. But it's going to be a tough matchup for them. They've really got to show up today to beat this Sturdy Artisans team. Excuse me.
Completely agree, Dave. But they have the mechanical prowess to do it. Every single one of these players individually can play the game and push their buttons incredibly well. Where the Fishies have struggled in the past has been that mid to late game macro play, the objective play, and whether or not they're really concise and cohesive in their shot calling. It feels like sometimes Oceans will go in on his Ymir pick, get a triple freeze, and then die to the three people he froze because no one was there to help him out. Or maybe two people are going in and the rest of the team goes for a split push. I just feel like that their shot calling maybe isn't quite there just yet, but the early game is where the Fishies really do thrive, when they're able to just play their lanes, get their 1v1s or their 2v2s and things along those lines. That's where this team is really at their best. It's just whether or not they've been able to grow week by week into a team that can transition those early game leads into something a little bit more substantial.
Agreed. Individually, we've liked what we've seen out of this team. Chronic, specifically in my mind, I think has stepped up very well. The Sun Wukong pick works for him. Out of that solo lane, you give this guy the ability to work strong into a game, and we usually take it more times than not. I think this duo lane is also going to be where this matchup might pivot one way or another. Oceans and Renjaru have shown flashes of greatness and then have sometimes fallen a little bit behind there in that lane. And, you know, it's hard when you're going up against Stuart and Ionic, Mifflin, to feel comfortable in that lane. How important do you think the duo lane is going to be in this one?
Very important. I think the duo lane is kind of a slept-on lane in general in Season 8 just because of how large the map is. Back in Season 7, we had the signature cringe gank. Jungler shows up at level 3, duo lane's still level 2, and they could just keep going there and keep repeatedly allowing that pressure to fall through. But in Season 8, with the map being as large as it is, we do not often see junglers over there. The 2v2 is just that. It's just two players tackling each other until the supports rotate out, and then it's a 1v1 lane.
Well, Mifflin, without further ado, let's kick it off. Picks and bans for game number 1 between the Sturdy Artisans and the Fishies. We haven't seen all that much meta swapping happening. This is something that I like to touch on early on in the season before a kind of hard established meta gets there. But Miff, we might already be nearing that point. Though, what we're going to see later on today in the SPL, and I'm sure this is something that we'll talk about when we're on the desk together. I wonder where Tiamat starts to fall here, because the SPL during the last couple of games yesterday, she just kind of went unpicked, unbanned. The SCC maybe hasn't quite gotten that memo yet. Still a strong enough pick to take off the table.
Yeah, I think Tiamat certainly going to be a little bit stronger at the SCC level as well. It takes a concentrated effort to deal with that split push prowess that she has. Drop some lizards in the long lane, walk over to Fire Giant, put pressure there. Well, all of a sudden, that long lane is going to be at risk of losing a tower or a Phoenix if it is exposed over there. The SPL, much better at that macro level play than the SCC is so far. So I think that Tiamat, at least if going by the wayside in the SPL, should still be a very meta pick down here.
How about this? E-set taken away, as well as the set. So, a couple set bans, I guess. I don't know. I think I did it right the first time with the play on words, and then I just ruined it by going too far in there. But something to look at there as well. Set and E-set both taken away by the Fishies. So the high burst damage and the lockdown that E-set brings, we've seen the flexibility. I think mainly that's a Sino ban. I know Sino likes E-set out of the jungle, but won't be able to see it here in game number 1. Guan Yu and Honor, then first picks for both of these teams. Miff, Guan Yu continues to be a force to be reckoned with out of that solo lane.
He's just so strong with that defense shred on Talu Assault, his healing prowess in the late game team fights. Anytime a fight goes a little bit longer, Guan Yu's team always going to be able to benefit, as well as just the CC immune ultimate, good engage tools. Cannot sleep on Guan Yu at all, but this is a pick that the Sturdy Artisans pick up. This Athena, I think that it potentially could be one of the best picks in the game right now. Kind of wild to me that she makes it through here. Fishies had the option to take it for themselves, but instead I like to pick up Sun Wukong. I feel like that may have been a little bit of a missed opportunity.
Right, I mean, there's a very small chance, right, that the Sturdy Artisans take Sun Wukong with one of their second or third picks. You got to feel like there's maybe an opportunity to grab the Athena for your team, but maybe trying to keep some things under wraps are the Fishies here. They'll take kind of a non-comp revealing pick in the Sun Wukong on her there as well. Has tended to be the first overall hunter taken for a couple of the teams up the SPL level. We know that Nehu likes this Discordia as well, so we don't see the mid laner for the Sturdy Artisans just yet, Miff. But this Discordia pick has seen some success for this Fishies team.
It has, and Discordia's passive going to play a pretty heavy role inside the solo lane most likely. Sun Wukong going to be benefiting from that passive for the majority of the early game. Should give him a slight edge up against this Guan Yu, but Sturdy Artisans top 3 just through and through. Guan Yu, Athena, Heimdall. That feels like some of the best in-slot picks you can get. And Athena, being that flex pick, could go into the jungle, could go into support, is going to keep the Fishies guessing. That's why they decide to just go ahead and ban out mid-mages, Thoth and Yanis removed from the table. I really do like this draft for the Artisans, man. And I feel like they could slot just about anything into it. They've already got the CC core that they need. They've got decent damage output. They can go for an unorthodox mage or really anything. The sky's the limit.
An interesting pick here in the Anubis. The first game we'll see him at the SCC level, so no Yanis, no Thoth, but Anubis maybe makes some sense there for Pagon out of the mid lane. Ymir has been one of the premier lockdown supports that we've seen here as of late. Okay, Miff, so Athena will assume his support here with Guan Yu solo, and then one of Heimdall and Neath mid and Hunter, and then Anubis jungle? Is that what we're looking at here? Maybe Sino on Anubis out of the jungle? That's kind of the only thing that makes sense to me.
You kind of nailed it there, Dave. I think that is the best allocation of each one of these gods in slot, but Sino is kind of a weirdo, so he could go with that Neath into the jungle. It's kind of hard to say with this guy. Yeah, hey, look. I'm not out there playing Neath, Anubis, Osiris, Arachne jungle in Season 8, alright? Sino's doing his own thing. I like this draft still, in general, just because of that core 3 that they got in the top 3. But the Artisans kind of do drop a couple of tiers with these last 2 picks. Very interesting draft with them.
Yeah, needless to say, we've got a lot of questions to be answered. Game number 1, Sturdy Artisans and the Fishies. It'll be J-Mac and Fuzzy taking us in.
Thank you so much, Dave. Welcome, everybody, to game number 1 between the 2 teams. I'm Fuzzy. Joined with me is J-Mac. And J-Mac, we were thinking on the desk that Sino would go ahead and go with this Anubis pick, and we're seeing it. And I'm a little bit baffled, J-Mac. I totally understand where Mifflin's coming with, where that's the best resources for it, but what is the purpose of going Anubis in the jungle?
It's literally level 5 kill basically anybody on the map. Anubis is the, once you have ultimate, you blink, typically you would buy blink, you blink into lane, wrap somebody, and then unless they have beads and Aegis or some way to get away from you, you just kill them. That's it. That's the name of the game for Anubis. But not going the blink means he doesn't have that immediate initiation onto that one. I don't know. I don't see how it's going to work out as well with him on the beads. He kind of needs it, though, up against Kirmi.
Yeah, Kirmi is one of those guys that is going to focus out this Anubis and Sino if he's in a bad position and doesn't have that ultimate available. But, you know, we were talking about how the dual lane is kind of slept on, and, you know, Oceans and Rajaro have this really aggressive comp, and we're seeing how aggressive it can be. Stewart hitting level 2 with that Heimdall, but a comp that they have on this dual lane side can give them a lot of pressure if they're able to maintain that. So really have to look forward on the left-hand side of the map, but I don't know. I just see the dog himself, Anubis, on my screen, and it freaks me out. But Blake coming out from Oceans. This is the aggression that we were talking about. Ionic is the target. He's going to go ahead and jump in, and that will be first blood to Rinjaru. So now Stewart's going to try to see if he can get away, and he will be able to, walking right through that Bifrost.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the typical level 2 of a Ymir on her lane. It's, hey, as long as somebody doesn't hit level 2 before us, we are guaranteed to basically get that kill. And unfortunately for Ionic, he didn't hit 2, so he didn't have that dash available to him, so that's just a free and easy kill for the side of Fishies. And this is what they're known for. They are known to be the early game aggressions. They're the ones who get the lead in the early stages of the game, so it's not surprising at all to see them try and take these early pathings, because like Mifflin was saying on the desk, they really do struggle more towards the more macro stages of the late game, so trying to push as much of a lead early on is going to be their best benefit.
And they will struggle here pretty soon, especially since they have Relentless One on this Guan Yu. He is one of the ones that, not only Guan Yu as a whole, but Relentless One is just such a strong solo player, and he's able to get into the backline, possibly even focus out Kirmi, Neho, Rinjaru. It could just spell disaster for that team. Bifrost being used, Rosario trying to see if he can get on to Stewart, but Stewart electing to use that Bifrost to get away.
Oceans can keep himself ahead, because Ymir is one of those feast or famine kind of gods. We talk about it all the time. I feel like it's kind of just overstated at this point. He's going to either feed super hard in the early game, or he's going to really push your team and escalate them further and further ahead as these late stages come through, and you really do need to have that extra push for you on that Ymir.
And that Ymir is definitely going to start being an impact player here, especially with Oceans piloting it. Maybe he's here pretty soon to start rotating into that mid lane to see if they can help out Neho in that pressure lane, because we didn't really talk about the Discordia pick. Discordia is a great pickup for this comp, making sure you're locking things down, making sure everybody stays in that position, and when you throw that large apple across the map, that could do some crazy amounts of damage, especially since Sturdy Artisans are known for that team that just group together as 5 and they stay as very close.
Still waiting for Sino to get his Boots 3 online. It's going with this more lifesteal-oriented start onto it. Means he has a little bit of extra sustain into the jungle, but not having those tier 3 boots means he's a lot less mobile compared to his counterpart Kirmi, who has gone for the boots rush on this assassin and has hit that level 5, looking to make a very early gank over towards this right-hand side.
Relentless One spotting it out just slightly, trying to see if he can take the safety of the tower, and nothing's really going to come out of that rotation from the boys in red, but trying to see if he can bait him out a little bit, but won't be able to. Relentless One definitely playing the smarter version of that. But Oceans is now in the mid lane, definitely going to make sure everything's helpful with that. Ionic is as well rotating around with the mid. So the combo that I'm looking for, J-Mac, we're talking about Sino, we're talking about this really weird pick. This Ionic into Sino ultimate is going to be pretty crazy to see. I'm thinking that we're going to see an Anubis just have an Athena ring around him, wrap, Athena's going to taunt, and that Death Stare is just going to go ahead and annihilate anybody in its path.
I know. Now level 5 with those tier 3 boots online. I need to see him make some kind of rotation, get something going for himself, because Anubis is notorious for falling off in the late stages of the game as far as team fight go. If he doesn't have a lead, he's just kind of sitting even more than anything, it's going to be more difficult for him to get these big kills off. I mean, the biggest problem with Anubis, everybody knows, is he just sits there and hits you, but that's the problem, is he sits there. He's rooted for 2 of his primary damaging abilities, and somebody could easily take advantage of that. Something like, I don't know, a Naja or even as Discordia can really take advantage of that, throw the golden apple at him, and now if you have a Divine Ruin, you've applied that anti-heal to him, and you've applied a big burst of damage as well. I need to see Sino make some kind of big initiation as sooner rather than later, and it looks like they're going to take a 5-minute Scorpion.
The Forp is the one that falls first, 5 minutes in, and that was a really aggressive playstyle for the Sturdy Artisans, just making sure that they're able to get the upgraded buffs for that speed buff when it spawns, and now this blue buff, so that will definitely give Relentless One just a little bit more of an advantage. And Gorp is usually the one that you go for, but I think that they want to know, Fishies are known, as we said, for this early game, so if they take a Gorp too early, it could spell disasters. Pagon is going to go ahead and get flipped, and there's the wrap coming out. Sino's going to get frozen, but Sino's a little bit slow. He has no mobility. He's able to escape just barely out of the Ymir ultimate, but Kirmi throwing out a large ring bounce is going to make Pagon back, and there's the wall. No aggression, though, onto the Sino, but Pagon's still around. Could look for something, but instead, they're just going to go ahead and disengage.
Man, one little micro thing there is some people may not have caught. Pagon using that ultimate onto Kirmi guarantees that Sino's able to live during that engagement, or at least keep his beads more than anything. If he didn't get that ultimate and get the stun going for him, and make sure that Sino has an opportunity to try and get out of that Ymir ultimate, that likely would have been another kill on the board for Fishies, but it might be one onto the board. Here's Kirmi grabs Sino with a free-handed ultimate.
Well, there's the ultimate, the beads, and the Death Stare, the exact thing that we were expecting, J-Mac, and nothing's going to come out of it, but maybe Oceans will fall to the Pagon backflip. Sino is going to try to see if he can get away from Chronic. Chronic is pinging him out, making sure Relentless One is here to give him some more peel, and Chronic's just going to go ahead and burn for it out. A great rotation from Kirmi to see if he could pick out Sino, and Oceans was there for backup, but the rest of Sturdy Artisans were there to help out their Anubis.
And that's the one benefit that the Sturdy Artisans has with this draft now is, yes, the Anubis has the problem of being rooted, but while he's there, he has the Athena ultimate on top to give him that mitigation. Ionic's ultimate is going to be so critical for Sino. That's the only reason that he lived during those fights, because otherwise, Kirmi and Oceans would have just torn him apart. Instead, they're able to turn that one around and end up getting a kill onto the back of Pagon for this one in the initiation.
And what I really like, too, is that lifesteal did come into effect while he was ulting. I would have expected, Anubis to just fall pretty quickly, but with that passive and with that lifesteal boost that he has online, that's going to really help him out whenever he does get caught out in this position. So great teamwork from the Sturdy Artisans. And Fishies, they had the right idea. They're playing the early game. They're playing it as aggressive as they can be, but it feels like they're playing a little bit now on the back foot, J-Mac. The gold lead's still in their favor just from that first blood, but I don't know. It seems like slowly but surely the Sturdy Artisans are starting to take some of these fights into their advantage.
Now they're looking at Ionic. No beats available for the Guardian. He's going to be thrown up into the sky and drop down into 2 ultimates on top of him. And it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get out, but he does manage ring bounce. Not quite enough.
Ionic, super low. Sino is here, but no mana to be able to do anything with. He's just going to be there to make sure that Pagon is able to get out. Wall coming out from Oceans will not connect. Pings are coming out on the Heimdall to see where he's at, but they're not going to go for it. They will see that the Heimdall did back, though, so they might look for this Gorp a little early. The Pings are coming out for it, and they will go ahead and start it. No one's around to contest this, so this is a free Gorp for the Fishies.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy pick for you. You just force the support and the mid laner to back away. Even you seeing the Hunter is able to make his way back into the base. It's just a free take for them. Make sure to get both those Scorpions now completely off the map, which means we'll have a quick Gold Fury spawning here soon, and the Fire Giant and Pyro will spawn on time at that 10-minute mark. which honestly is kind of where both these teams might be looking to push towards sooner rather than later, is getting these Furies, getting these Fire Giants more importantly. Because Sturdy Artisans, I mean, they've got a comp that will just absolutely melt a Fire Giant, absolutely melt a Fury. That's one of the benefits of the Anubis, is his damage scaling is just so ridiculously high. He can kill these objectives with little to no trouble at all.
Well, Yannick is making a rotation to Blink coming out, the taunt coming out onto Oceans, the wrap onto Sino, the Death Stare. This is again what they were looking for, an ultimate coming out, not enough. Oceans will get away with just nuggets of health. It looks like about 15 or 20 HP. Big ultimates coming out for them, and a big relic too. I mean, just Oceans getting away with that little bit's going to help, but I don't know if it's going to help the fact that 4 members of the Sturdy Artisans are around this Gold Fury, and I don't think Fishies are going to try to do anything. Rajaro is around. He's going to throw the Desert Fury, but it's not going to be in time. Sturdy Artisans will pick up the Gold Fury at 9 minutes.
Yeah, a little late to the rotation for the Fury instead. On the flip side, Fishies will make sure to pick up the Scorpion that spawned on their side of the map from earlier on, so they'll get that enhanced speed and enhanced blue buff, as well as a little bit of extra enhancements buffs across the map onto it. So a little bit of a boost as far as their teamfight potential goes with those boosted abilities. But looking at the difference in gold, I mean, only 600 gold there and a couple hundred experience. Essentially still dead even game here. Sturdy Artisans with a very slight lead onto it. And getting that Fury is going to be so big because now they've opened the map to some of the more unique Furies.
Well, Relentless One is going to try to see if he can get onto Kirimi, and the ultimate coming out for Athena to see, but the knockup
Beautiful.
by this Sun Wukong is great. Ionic is not getting stunned out by this Discordia, and Oceans and the rest of the squad are here. Ionic trying to see if he can set something up, but not being able to really do a whole lot because there's an Athena here and she used an ultimate, but 2 ultimates burned. Fishies could look for something if they choose to, but instead they're just going to disengage from this fight and make sure Pagon doesn't take this tower for free.
Both these teams really looking out for each other on these CCs. Well, now Pagon's going to get caught by Ocean. Sino missing the wrap on the back. But, I mean, you notice Chronic there using the Ox form there to negate the dash from Ionic to make sure that Relentless One can't continue forward as well. Just great team synergy across the board. We know that both these teams have potential to be great teams. I mean, we see Sturdy Artisans up 3-0. You're seeing some of the shines why. But Fishies aren't entirely out of it. And little micro plays like that, Chronic making sure to wait until just the last second to negate that Athena dash to make sure his teammate gets out. Rotation from Nayu to get a strike to hold him in place as well. I mean, these are the great little things that make these two teams so powerful.
Well, I think the Fishies are being caught sleeping. Pings are coming out saying, hey, we're going to go first because it's mid, while the Sturdy Artisans focus the Pyromancer. So that's going to be another big win for the Sturdy Artisans, just controlling the neutral jungle camps, it seems. The gold lead's still not that big, though, for the Fishies, so they still have a chance. It's right around 1,000 gold.
Yeah, one thing that I didn't really even notice to pick up onto is Sands of Time has become such a much more prominent pick into the mid lane. It used to be Conduit Gem. It used to be literally the Church of Conduit Gem for all your mid lane mages, and then people were like, you know, Tier 2 Restored Artifact is kind of nice, and now we're seeing this shift towards Sands of Time. Magical Power, MP5, and cooldown reduction onto it as well. Once you upgrade this, you can have the option to go with 20% cooldown reduction onto it as well. But I think also, maybe, now we haven't really seen it yet, potential for you to go for that secondary option with the 6-minute respawn, brings you back to 25% health. Every 6 minutes you have that potential cooldown. We haven't really seen that just yet. Looking to see somebody be able to really utilize that item as far as that tree goes. But more than anything, I think this gradual cooldown reduction shift early on compared to Conduit Gem has kind of allowed some other mages to come back into the forefront.
And I think the biggest reason for that focus, J-Mac, is simply because of the amount of damage output that needs to happen from mids. You want to spam those abilities, especially if you're like a Scylla or a Giannis or a Discordia. You want to make sure that those abilities come out because they do so much damage. Ocean's trying to see if he can catch Sino off, but Sino's not going to be caught off super well because there's the ultimate. He's just shredding through Oceans, but Oceans will not fall. Kirimi will fall and Pagon will pick it up. The blink coming out from Oceans, will he be able to escape? He's running to a tower maybe to see if something can happen. Maybe he can die to that instead. He's trying to see if he can get the big prey. The freeze comes out. He's going to walk into the tower and the tower will pick up the kill. Big brain play from Oceans.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally the only option that he could take at that point is he made it out, but there's 4 people tracking him down. There's no way he actually gets to live in this situation, so making sure to delay it long enough so that way the tower is guaranteed to kill. Pagon, though, looking for a solo kill here in the mid lane, looking at Nayu, but not going to find it. Doesn't have the ultimate to confirm the kill. Sino is tanking tower shots to allow Ionic to blink forward and pick up the kill of his own. I mean, that is just W King at the enemy if I have ever seen it.
Well, Kirmi's here now, and that's going to be the Ansile proc. Kirmi's trying to see if he can keep his speed buff from falling, but Sino will go ahead and pick it up with the help of Ionic. Pagon is here as well. The mid tower has fallen in that little skirmish. Wrath coming out just to secure that, but Chronic is here, the taunt coming out. There's 4 members inside of this mid lane just for the 1 speed buff, and Sturdy Artisans will be able to get away with it, and Stewart, while again on the left-hand side, completely alone, no one paying attention to him, will get another tier 1 tower for the Sturdy Artisans.
Sino just walked all the way up mid lane, said, hey, Ionic, get my back on this. We got to kill the mid laner, and we need to take their speed buff. W keys through tier 1, through tier 2 tower. Ionic blinks to make sure they get the kill, and then what do? They walk into enemy territory to the speed buff to find Kirmi. Kirmi gets away from Sino for a little bit. He says, okay, cool, you're not my target, I'm low health. Let's just heal off and steal your speed buff while we're at it. Oh, and by the way, now we took your tier 1 tower in mid lane. Now we got it in solo lane, and we're going to walk away from this. That is something that you do not get to see very often. Is somebody this early in the match with this little of a lead just run through enemy territory like that.
Not only that, but they were able to secure an Oni Fury with everybody on the Fishies around it, and that's just showing how dominant of a performance the Sturdy Artisans are having right now. This gold lead's going to help tremendously at 5,500 gold. The next wave that spawns will be Oni wave, so all the pressure that they have across the map with all tier 1s down is going to really help if they elect to go for this Fire Giant, which is still around. Pyromancer will be spawning here in about 45 seconds as well, so if they want to go for that, just to give them a little bit more gold, that could definitely work. But when you're talking about 5,000, J-Mac, you're talking about an extra item across the board, like a tier 1, a tier 2, but Sino, 0, 0, and 3, he's been impactful. He's been in every single one of them, but I think it's because the Fishies are just tracking him down, and here it comes. We were talking about the burn, J-Mac, the frenzy pop off, the death gaze. That Fire Giant is gone. Sturdy Artisans at 15 minutes shred a Fire Giant, and now they're going to push up as 5.
There are 2, maybe 3 gods in the game that when you see it on the enemy team, you have to have ward coverage littering that side of the map. Anubis is the top one of it. After that, I would say Iset, and then maybe not as much anymore Merlin. But if there is an Anubis on the enemy team who has even a remote lead, you have to have ward coverage around Fire Giant, because otherwise you are losing. That was what, a 5-second Fire Giant? The entirety of Death Gaze and the entirety of Plague of Locusts. That was all it took to shred that objective.
Only objectives are being shred across the board. Tier 2 and right has fallen. Next target looks like it will be the tier 2 in mid. Everybody backing from Fishies after they were able to get a tier 1 tower on the left-hand side and clearing that Oni wave, but I think it's going to be too little too late unless they elect to really focus on the Relentless one. But we did see a blink, a 3-man freeze coming out of Oceans, a big apple's coming out. Ionic is trying to see if he can get something, but Ionic will go thrown up into the air. When he comes crashing back down, he will meet Rinjaru as he falls. Chronic is now going up into the Summer Cloud Salt. He's going to see if he can get some heal off. Pagon burned his ultimate when he was trying to see if he could focus out Neho, and Neho burned the beats and the Aegis while they were trying to take that. The tier 2 tower will, though, inevitably fall. Fishies, though, able to pick up 1, and even though it's the support, their big 4 damage dealers still have that Fire Giant around their waist.
All that, and they still lost their tier 1 tower. Yeah, you got the kill on Ionic, that's a big thing for it, but they made so much of a commitment, burned all 5 ultimates, and they only managed to pick up Ionic. Almost got Relentless one on there, but this Guan Yu is fairly healthy and was able to heal himself up through. And then they still ended up losing that tier 2 tower on the back of it. So what they get in a net worth out of that, I mean, they're still down easily 1,000 plus gold just from that one initiation. Now, luckily for them, they didn't really burn any relics onto it. Nayu may have had to use them earlier on into the engagement, but outside of that, I mean, they still lost that tier 2 tower. There's a big one to lose too, losing that mid tier 2. Now they've only got 1 tower left on the map, and their Phoenix defenses is going to have to be on point for this one. Though when you're looking at the 2 teams, I think the Phoenix sieges and defenses honestly kind of go in favor of Fishies. You have a Ymir wall off the enemy minions, make sure that they can't get right through. Also perfect for initiation with a blink 3-man freeze like we saw under the tower. I think at a Phoenix, Fishies stand a much better chance than they do out in these open waters in the towers.
Yeah, I think that Ocean's 3-man freeze just shows how dominant he is with this god, and really massive. If they didn't have that fire giant around their waist, I think that could have been an absolute deicide in favor of the Fishies, but not, unfortunately, because of the healing, they're able to get that. Relentless One almost getting caught out by a sash from Kierme because they want to get the greater Scorpion on the right-hand side, in which they do secure, but because of that, this left side tier 2 tower, J-Mac, will fall very quickly, so all Phoenixes are open for the Sturdy Artisans. Fire Giant will be despawning here in about 50 seconds, and maybe that's what they're going to look for. Just kind of play it slow, wake that Fire Giant, come back to themselves, and then shred it again like we saw with Sino's ultimate.
Well, they're looking for a red buff steal here, and now with all towers wiped off the map, there's nothing left for Fishies to defend but the Phoenixes, and like I said, they're going to have to make them very on-point defenses, a lot of team synergy with it. The problem is everybody is falling behind in experience more than anything else. 10,000 gold and levels across the board, 3 in jungle, mid, 4 levels in supports, and a level between the hunters. The only somewhat even matchup they have is Chronic, who's about a half level ahead of Relentless One. But that half level is not enough to make up for that 10-plus level disparity that the rest of the Fishies have.
Well, 20 minutes in, as J-Mac pointed out, it is 10,000 gold and a Gold Fury is spawning, so this could be a little bit more gold if they elect to go for this, but the Fire Giant has fallen off. Pagon's winding up his ultimate to see if he can catch anybody out of position. Sino is actually maybe thinking about rotating around, but recognizing that he got spotted out by that Bifrost kind of invisible ward, making sure that everything's good there, and so they're going to get that, and there's the Gold Fury call. Sino's just going to go and make sure that they clear that left-hand side. That might be their target, as they see a lot of people on the right-hand side for the Fishies. Fire Giant spawning pretty soon, J-Mac, and do they just make the rotation over, burn it again, and call it a day?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, look at the ward coverage on that side. Fishies do have 3 wards, but they're all on their side of the map, on the upper side of the Fire Giant. Meanwhile, they can just walk down the lower path. Instead, they're all going to walk over a ward beside Stewart, so now they know they're going for Fire Giant in this case. They got to start shaking these wards off the map. They got to start shredding them away. That way they can get a nice and sneaky, cheeky Fire Giant. But I don't think Fishies are just going to give it to them this time around. Now that they've walked over those wards, they know they're here. They've got a good teamfight potential, especially if they start this Fire Giant. They've got a lot of CC, but unfortunately for them, Oceans is already down to half health. Ocean's down to half. Sino's going to blink in and ults, and there it is. Sino will pick up 1. That's 1 gone. Kierme is going to come in. That's 2 gone for Sino. Relentless One picks up Neho in the back. That's going to be 1 for Pagon as well. 4 members down for the Fishies, and the Bionic Bleak is going to go on to Chronic. They're going to root him down. They're going to wrap him around, and Bionic will get 1 for his own. A deicide at 21 minutes for the Sturdy Artisans. And off the back of just 1 little taunt from Ionic to start the engagement through, they thought that the wall was going to be good enough for Oceans to keep them off, but instead, all it takes is just the damage from Sino on this Anubis. Shreds through 2 players on his own. Not only 2 players, but this Titan is going to be shredded very quickly. That's going to be a frenzy pop. This is a 100% game. 21 minutes, 50 seconds. Sturdy Artisans, after 1 deicide, will pick up the first game. Yeah, the 1 deicide, and that's all she wrote. I mean, that's a wrap, Fuzzy. That's all that you need with this kind of a team. You don't even need the ultimate from Anubis to shred through that Titan. Every other tower on the map was already done. They shredded through that with their last Fire Giant. This Fire Giant was just a bait to get the enemy team to walk forward. They got their 1 little opening that they needed. They got Oceans to step just a little too far forward, and that just opened the doors for Sino to run through. Yeah, the Sturdy Artisans just were able to absolutely demolish Oceans in that, and we'll be able to see them demolish again Fishies. Stick around. After this break, the Deaths will break down Game 1, and we'll get into Game 2.
in game number 1. The Sturdy Artisans, bit of a slow start, but did some consistent team fighting, objective calls, and individual picks, and then eventually just one full-on deicide later on in the game, and this one's over pretty quick.
It really is, man. The Fishies got systemically destroyed. Didn't it feel clinical to you too, Dave? It was just a slow burn from the Sturdy Artisans that eventually culminated into one clean team fight win, but it wasn't for lack of trying to find kills throughout the early. There were a couple speed buff invades coming through, a bunch of back camp invades from Sino, and then eventually, as you said, one deicide is all it took to end that match out.
I loved this play from Ionic and Sino there in the mid lane. Channels that Athena ultimate, gets in onto Sino, blinks forward, grabs the kill. Anubis jungle, man. Is it the new meta? Should I expect to be seeing this in all my ranked games from here on out?
Well, considering how ranked culture works, and they'll just kind of copy and emulate everything they see in the SCC or the SPL, regardless of how individually good it is in the meta, I think you can expect to see it in your matches, Dave. Whether or not it's actually good, though, that's still up in the air.
Yeah, still up in the air. Look, if somebody's going to make something weird like that work, it's going to be Sino 205 on the KDA. Only Ionic died a couple of times. You expect that on the front line in Athena. You taunt them in, they'll look at you, you'll have to die a couple times, and bringing the rest of your team the victory. This is kind of a, it's not a flashy stat type of game. It was sort of the setting up of the pins for the Artisans. That they spend the entire game building up this lead. And, I don't know if it's probably not the game plan, right, that you happen to get a deicide right outside of the enemy base while the Phoenix is open right near you and you can just walk in and grab the end. It's probably not how you draw it up. It's one of those things where you realize, dang, I guess we can win the game. They're all dead for 40 seconds. You just kind of waltz on in. So it's that quick shot calling, I think, that makes a big difference here for the Sturdy Artisans in Game 1. Is this a pick ban thing that you think refresh some ideas there for the Fishies in Game 2 and you might be off on a better foot?
I think it could certainly help out. You don't want a team getting Guan Yu in general, especially Guan Yu and Athena together.
And
That's
Athena,
a pretty good
yep.
top two pick. So I think the Fishies could address that in of itself, but it wasn't exactly those two picks that switch it up. The Fishies do start off that game well inside a lane, but it's that same issue we addressed originally on the desk, that macro play around that mid-game phase they really need to work on.
All right, let's see what is worked on here in picks and pans for game number 2 between the Fishies and the Sturdy Artisans. I think I agree with you there, Mifflin. First and foremost, we got to address the Athena here. If you're going to let her through, don't let her through on the back end of also a Guan Yu pick. That might be first and foremost something to look at and maybe change up here going into game number 2. Tiamat's still unavailable, or not unavailable, but probably unavailable depending on the way these bans go. 64% ban rate, which still feels kind of low. I think she's been let through maybe a couple of times down here in the SCC. Guan Yu's been far and away the most banned out god at this level at 89%. 82 is set right behind it. So Guan Yu now taken away. I think it's a smart pivot. Sobek is as well. I guess E-set jungle myth is scary enough in the hands of Sino that you gotta ban it.
I guess. I mean, I just guess, right? You really want him off the E-set so bad that you're willing to allow him to play something else. I guess if you know he's not going to go towards the meta and he's going to bring out the Anubis jungle if E-set gets banned, you're not feeling too awful about it. Bans all the way through for both teams. Tsukiyomi, Tiamat, Guan Yu removed by the Artisans. Heimdall, E-set, and Sobek taken off the table by the Fishies. And what does that leave open? That second most banned god in the SCC. Fishies pick up set for themselves, and it has flex potential. Dave could go into mid, could go into solo, more than likely going to go into the jungle.
Yeah, we've seen it in the jungle more often than not there. I think it's a strong pick for the Fishies. 80% win rate for this set. 5 games picked. I think that's what, 4-1 then is what that shakes down to for the set. Spot on there for me. We're starting off this day strong in the math department. Athena given over to the Sturdy Artisans. So that shows you something there. The set prioritized above the Athena. Maybe not all that surprising, given how the picks and bans have been going, especially how they went there in game number 1. Athena Kamazotz, though, Miff. So that's an interesting pair of picks there, and still leaves some room for flexibility. Kamazotz seen in the jungle. We used to see Camazotz out of solo. Athena can bump around to a few of those as well. The Sturdy Artisans are giving themselves the ability to make some decisions later on in the draft.
And here's the thing about how the Sturdy Artisans are freaks, Dave. They'll take that Camazotz literally anywhere. I'm not willing to say it's going to go in the jungle because it's not in that mage tree. I think I've seen Pagon play Camazotz more than I've seen Sino play Camazotz within this year, so we can hold off our reserve where that god's going to go until we see the rest of this draft. The Fishies, on the other hand, get themselves a very strong top 3. Set, Apollo, and Yamoja locked in. Likely the jungler and the duo lane right there. You got the global presence from the Apollo, the healing and CC lockdown potential from Yamoja, and just that raw damage output that Set has, as well as that dive potential. I think they come away with a very balanced top 3.
Do you think the Fishies win the draft phase throughout the first 3 picks here? I mean, getting Set, Apollo, Yamoja feels pretty good. On her has been feeling pretty good recently for a lot of the teams that have picked up that pick. Camazotz maybe the big pivot here. The Fishies come out ahead with the top 3 here, man.
I'd say generally they might. It's a pretty close race. I personally think value Athena a lot higher than even the pros do. I think that god is so versatile, so strong that she really should almost never be let through. I think Athena could potentially be the best character in the game, and then matched up with On Her, who's seen a huge resurgence inside of the SPL recently. I think that the Artisans come away with a very strong top 3 in of themselves. But Yamoja, Set, Apollo is kind of hard to argue with, Dave, so I think I would give the slight edge to them as Anubis and Yanis banned out, and I gotta only assume that those are targeted towards Sino.
Kernanos now is the pick alongside an On Her, so it's what, maybe one of those 2 out of the mid lane. Who knows with this team, man? They make it work, which is weird, which is exciting, I guess. Not even weird and exciting. It's a combination of the both. Discordia for Nehu again there in the mid lane for the Fishies. Good control, pretty standard mage. The passive, as you talked about there, and picks and bans for game number 1. Likely important here going into game number 2. And then a King Arthur to round out the draft. That is a scary draft, Mifflin. This Fishies team has a very good draft built around a lot of frontline, a lot of engage, and a lot of damage potential.
Yeah, the dive as well is incredibly strong. Elongated team fights likely going to favor the Fishies as well due to the healing from Yamoja. I really do like their draft through and through. But this Hebo lock-in, Dave, I think it's going into the jungle, man. I don't think Sino literally has it in him anymore. I don't think he can do it. I don't think he can play Assassins instead. He's got to keep inside of that mage tree. So I think that means we're looking at a On-Her Athena lane, On-Her Cernunos lane with On-Her going mid, Camazotz solo. That's the prediction.
Wait, did you say On Her Kernanos lane? You think
whoa, wait, no. Athena Kernanos lane. Yeah, hold on. They're both A's, all right? Leave me alone.
No, fair enough. You know, maybe the Kernanos pivots over to the jungle. Maybe Sino shows... You know what? I think it was one of the pre-game or pre-season, like, test runs we were doing. We had one of the, like, a qualifier game going. I think Incon played Kernanos out of the jungle there randomly.
He did. Yep,
if I'm remembering correctly, there was, like, a test game that we kept running over and over and over again. But we'll see. We've definitely seen Hebo out of the jungle more often than we've seen Kernanos. Sturdy Artisans, they throw us another curveball here in game 2. Let's kick it off.
Will the Fishies be able to hit that curveball, Dave, as Fuzzy's still here? And yeah, look, J-Mac, Ionic, Pagon, Sino is playing Kernanos jungle. They called it. That's just going to be absolutely phenomenal that Pagon is going to play this Hebo in the mid, and we don't see that a lot. We see Hebos in jungle more than anything else, so we have to talk about this Pagon playing Hebo in this mid lane.
I mean, it's not out of the question entirely. I know at the SPL level, you know, Sanguine was running this Habwan to the mid lane. It's not uncommon to see him probably more often in jungle as of recent times, but I think by throwing him back into the mid, Ig is kind of throwing him back where he was more so back and forth in Season 7. It's not a bad pick by any means. I think the Conduit Gem, again, is one of those items that kind of allows these weaker clearing mages to be able to really have and stand a chance in the mid lane. And it's certainly an item that is going to help this Hubwall as the late game goes forward.
Yeah, and as the Des was talking about, if I was just to look at comps alone, I'd say Fishies have the utmost dominant hand. Except for maybe one thing, and that would be Ionic on this Athena. But overall, I look at that and I go, that's a horrible comp to go against. And then I look at the names and I go, we saw how aggressive they were last time. Can they do something with it? The Fishies are known to play this aggressive early game, but can they snowball that and push the lead? That's the ultimate question that we're looking for. But we do have to mention that Kirmi is piloting the Set, and Set as a god in the jungle is fantastic, but when Kirmi's piloting it alone, it can be detrimental to a team.
A little bit of a misclick there by Renjaru, who loses his beads, and he may be losing his life for it. Stewart jumped in aggressively, but I don't think he had the impale available for him when that leap went through. So Renjaru may have just barely gotten saved by the graces of good timing for not having that impale onto Stewart there. Otherwise, I'm thinking Renjaru may have spilled for first blood.
Yeah, the worst thing to ever do is just accidentally just hit that F key or the beads key, wherever you have it hotkey to, and just go, oh, well, this is a problem, especially when it's an on her Athena, one of the two biggest CCers in this game, in the lane and as a whole. But Ocean still, he's around. He'll be able to heal up. We always joked around in Season 7 that Umoja was the walking fountain, and she will continue to do that. And like I said, J-Mag, this combo in the dual lane is really going to be the focus. If Stewart and Ionic can start going off, it could be really bad, but Renjaru and Oceans have two big gods themselves, as Ionic is going to try to see if he can get something set up. Got that dash winding up to see if he can go. The taunt, two-man taunt. Stewart is going to get mezzed out. Beautiful mezz from Relentless One. But look over on the right-hand side. Sino came over for rotation, but not going to be able to stun out Chronic on this King Arthur.
It's such an awkward rotation for a Cernunnos of all gods. I mean, one of the better hunters, aside from maybe what we saw with Apollo, to be able to make some kind of gank through. But now the leap is down on Stewart. That's a free call for Kirmi to go in.
We were talking about earlier, J-Mac, Kirmi on this set is going to be massive, and he's able to pick up the first blood. He's going to try to run it down on Ionic, but he's able to blink away. But because of that blink, I don't think he's going to be able to even try to go for this purple buff invade, as that will go in favor of the Fishies. So, but on the flip side, they were able to steal away the blue buff on the right-hand side. So, good little trade, but first blood for Fishies is a big win, and they're going to get this red buff away from Hebo.
Yeah, taking that red buff away from the mid laner will put Pegon down for a little bit, but the big thing is they got another first blood in dual lane. This time it went onto the jungler. Kirmi able to get the credit for that one and really start getting this set rolling. But putting this dual lane behind again is kind of the plan for the Fishies, and unfortunately last game they didn't really play off of that lead that they got. They got first blood on her Ymir dual lane. That is literally a free sign of now anytime someone walks to us, we should be able to kill them, but they didn't do anything with it last time around. I want to see them, and I need to see them take advantage of this first blood and advantage that they've built for themselves, especially with Stewart being the one down in experience. No beads, waiting for that lead. You can see Kirmi wants another rotation on this map.
3 members on the left-hand side, trying to see if they can catch out Stewart. Stewart just recognizing that something doesn't seem quite right here. He's going to go ahead and jump in circles and just try to make sure that he freezes that wave into his favor so he doesn't get caught out of position. But he will still take a good little bit of poke from Renjaru, and that will just be the disengage. Just grab the purple buff and everything. But J-Mac, you were talking about it. Fishies, they had the great early game last game. They weren't able to capitalize on it. But with this comp, I really think they're going to be able to capitalize with it, especially with the set pickup. Sino is, level 5. There's still a little bit of maybe half level, a quarter level difference between the two. But I really think that it's going to fall into Kirmi in this jungle.
The big thing was it last time is they got the first blood into a lane, and then what happened? Oceans made a rotation out and wanted to try and get advantage elsewhere. Said, okay, cool, we got the the first kill in dual lane, but we didn't really build a big lead. And then they tried to take down Sino on the Anubis, make sure, hey, we can't let Anubis get too far late game. Then they tried to rotate onto him. Problem is because they didn't keep Ionic down in that lane, he hit level 5, and that's all that Anubis needs as that extra little bit of a boost. Now, a little bit of a different story on the Cernunnos. I'm very curious to see how he's going to play this Cernunnos out, because as far as initiation goes, Cernunnos has a root and slow on your basic attacks if you're in the winter stance, and then you have the Wild Hunt. Wild Hunt's a great one to get relics out and whatnot, but looking into the flip side as to what he's against, now you can just leap right over at the very last second to avoid all the damage from it. Kirmi can teleport out with the sands. He goes for it. Kind of a harder god to really make an initiation with.
it is a harder guard to make an initiation with, but Relentless One, recognizing that 3 members were around him, he's kind of stuck. Bad out of hell used. The stun will happen, and that's going to be the second kill for the Fishies. Neho making a rotation all the way from the mid lane, but here comes Athena ulting in onto Cyno. He's going to blink in, and Athena will come crashing down. With no mana, he will just stand there. Rinjaru falls to Cyno.
Yeah, making sure to capitalize on one side, but just like we saw last game, rotation and kill over in that left-hand lane allows them to take that Scorpion on the right-hand side. The Forp is now down. Still the Gorp on the board for them. They can always like to go for it if they want to, but without the same level of shred that Anubis has, might be a little bit more difficult to get it. Pagon looking for a kill, going with the Crushing Wave and the basic after, and that's the power of this Habwa. No ultimate on the board for Neun. A nice little juke there. Pagon might be able to get out of this one alive.
He was able to squeak by with the help of that magic carpet ride that he took all the way back to his own jungle. Athena, though, was around just to make sure that if, they decided to go back in on him, Neho would end up falling into a taunt, but good dash from Neho just to recognize that that was not the play. But Cyno is around on this right-hand side. As you were saying, this is becoming slowly more of a brawl, J-Mac. It's starting to switch over into that transition because they were able to get that Forp, and they didn't like to go for the Gorp, surprisingly, on that left-hand side. They're still going to have a little bit of pressure for the Fishies. Just only 200 gold, though, at 6 minutes in, so there's not really a big lead. As we see Stewart going to leap in, throw the beads out as well from the Mez. Rinjaro is taking a little bit of poke from that Desert Fury. He does have the health and some Devourer's Gauntlets. He's going to come up into his ultimate, seeing that Oceans it might be a little bit of a problem. He's going to maybe look for the re-engage, but if he's smart, he'll disengage, and that's exactly what he likes to do.
Yeah, thought he was maybe going to get a chance at Stewart, and then as soon as he goes up into the sky, he saw 2 other people on that side of the map trying to gang up on Ocean. Said, I don't think this is the best time to go for initiation or for any kind of re-engage onto it. So Stewart loses out on the beads, Rinjaru loses out on the ultimate. Relentless One might lose out on his life. A nice leap will get him away for the time being, but I'm not sure he's going to make it out of this one. Bad out of hell back up, though. Now we'll make sure that he gets out.
Oceans is around for this purple buff, and Cyno is here as well. Cyno's going to use that ultimate, and it will not connect. That's going to be the Emoja ultimate coming out, just making sure that they can zone everybody out, but he was walking right into a pillar. Stewart's going to leap in. Oceans is the target. Sunder coming out, going to get a stun on it. The Stewart will fall. Ionic is able to pick up Oceans, and now Rinjaru is left alone with 3 members of Sturdy Artisans around. Blink coming out, no mana for him. Kirby picks up Cyno, though. Cyno fall gets Rinjaru on the death. Set is ulting. Athena will be around, and Pagon will pick him up. That is 5-4. Huge rotation out from the Sturdy Artisans.
A big crushing wave there as well. I'm pretty sure the Bramble Blast Tick actually got the last hit for Cyno in that matchup, and that's why he was able to get a kill, not Pagon getting a double kill into it. 'Cause for sure, I thought that crushing wave was what dealt the final blow, but you only see 1 extra kill on a Pagon compared to the solo kill he got in the mid lane earlier on. So at this point, you got to remember, you cannot ignore a Habwa. You cannot ignore this god. He's only level 10, sure, but he still does a ton of damage. That Conduit Gem allowing him to get so much early game damage, that extra true damage popped into it, plus the restored artifact, the cooldown boosts spam abilities even more often. I mean, right now, team fight-wise, Sturdy Artisans just have the better team fight in general. Cyno, though, I do want to see him using more than just the lifesteal stance. I know he wants that early level of sustain, but I think if he can get that protection shred with the autumn stance, or get the slow in there with the winter stance, I mean, even the extra bonus damage you get from the summer stance, something in there might make this fight go a little bit cleaner for him.
Yeah, that would be very helpful for the team, but I find it really funny, J-Mac, that you said the team fight for Sturdy Artisans is so good when we still look at the left-hand side of the screen and you'll see a fantastic team comp that is designed for team fighting on there for the Fishies, and it's interesting to see what they're going to do, and it's like Ocean's trying to see if he can pick someone out of position, as nothing really happens out of that. The ultimate coming out of Chronic to see if he can fight Relentless One under his own tower will not come up to anything. The Gold Fury has spawned, and 4 members Sturdy Artisans are on that left-hand side. Ionic, a little bit pushed out of position, but nothing to worry about, as he knows that the rest of his team is around.
Cyno just going to make sure to try and take these Oracle Harpies, give themselves some visions on that first Fury that comes through. Stewart and Rinjaru, they're going to have their potential boxing matchups pretty much for the remainder of this game. They're going to try and flex their hunter prowess, but more than anything else, it's just going to result in not a whole lot unless we see more rotations from these two teams. Sturdy Artisans are very willing to fight in this dual lane, despite them losing out in First Blood in that matchup. They're more than willing to take these early fights, especially with Pagon now with 2 kills. Sino has 2 kills as well. Both of them nearly 2 full items on the board. Pagon actually not going for that Rod at the Hootie just yet. Relentless One might be getting a solo kill on a Chronic.
Well, Sino's able to get 1. Chronic is trying to see if he can just keep himself alive on that right-hand side. And the fight in mid is happening. Athena did use the ultimate. Look at Sino looking weak. He's going to blink, and he's going to blink away from Rinjaro's damage and from Neho's damage. He's able to get away with 200, 400 health. That's going to be really big because that would have immediately fallen if he landed into the Apollo ultimate or even the root that was coming out of Neho.
Just good communication for his team, knowing that Rinjaru was making that rotation on the ultimate, so he blinks right past where the point would have been cut off for. Rinjaru had perfect positioning to land on that ultimate. Unfortunately, he's got blinked right past there by Sino, so Sino now has 3 kills on the board. And Iqbal to start up, giving him that little extra bit of power and boxing prowess in the jungle, and they're going to go straight onto this Gold Fury. Ultimate expended by Ocean's going to get Pagon taken down, but he's going to trade his life for the Fury. Not sure he wanted to take that death there, but I'm sure he's fine taking that trade.
The trade itself seemed a little bit interesting. He's now down a level, but Chronic able to pick up 1 on the right-hand side. That will help a little bit, but with Pagon though, not as much. You want to keep that gold. You want to keep yourself alive, and unfortunately, he didn't really have a whole lot to him. He did have that crushing wave available, but a little dicey. But in response for that Gold Fury pick, now they're going to get this Primal Fury. Kirmi shredding it up and trying to see if maybe they can get something for it, and they do get that Pyromancer. So 12 minutes in, J-Mac, Gold Fleet barely in favor of Sturdy Artisans, but after this Greater Scorpion falls, that's going to definitely look to swing more into that even balance, maybe a little bit more in Fishy's favor.
They really just lost everything after that Gold Fury, huh? I mean, they lost Pagon, they lost Relentless One, that's 2 kills, making it a less worthwhile trade. If it was just one or the other, not a huge deal. Losing 2 kind of sucks. Then they lose Tier 1 tower, so that's 500 gold on top of that, so that really hurts them. And then they also lose Pyromancer, another 750 gold, so immediately just gold-wise, they've come up negative onto it. And then the Scorpion gets taken on top of that. Fishies overall come up better in that engagement. Sure, they lose the Gold Fury, but first Gold Fury at only 12 minutes isn't really worth all that much gold. They definitely came out on the better end of this trade. Relentless One, again, just being constantly bullied by Chronic. This Camazotz is trying to do everything that it can to stay alive against the King, Arthur, but I mean, Chronic's just unrelenting here. Relentless One is just struggling to keep up with the level of damage that Chronic has on this god.
Well, the Bat Out of Hell expended. Kirmi is around to see if maybe he can come up into this jungle. We know that he has no escape. He's going to come right on in. Not going to hit. The blink comes out from Relentless One, but look who's coming in. It's Apollo crashing down from his chariot. He's going to try to hit the auto. The beads come out. A couple more autos might be able to do it, but Athena will ult Relentless One, giving him just enough damage mitigations. 2 ultimates expended there. The right-hand side tower will fall for the Tier 1, but on the left-hand side, Tier 2 will fall for the Sturdy Artisans, and they could continue to push this on the left-hand side, but they're going to go ahead and disengage, and recognizing that the rest of the jungle is being stripped away from them, Fishies now have so much pressure on this right-hand side of the map.
Fishies, again, notorious for their early games. 6-6 on the scoreboard, down 2,000 gold, but it really feels like they do have a lot of the advantage, minus that left-hand side. Both those towers already stripped away from them, so they don't have any level of protection on that left Phoenix, completely exposed in the event that a Fire Giant gets taken or started up here. Sturdy Artisans, 14-minute Fire Giant going through here. Chronic low in mana, a little low in health. Kirmi full health, low mana. They're going to be initiated immediately. Wild Hunt's going to force the beads and the Aegis out of Kirmi.
Well, Chronic is going to be left on by Stewart, and now Pagon has made his rotation. Crashing Wave will pick up Kirmi. Massive damage, but Pagon's taking an apple to the face, and he might actually end up falling, but he gets a double kill response. Pagon using the carpet to see if he can get away. Body blocks coming out from Sturdy Artisans. He's going to get away with little bits of health. Relentless One picking him up. Look who's going to fall. That's Rinjaro. A double kill for Relentless One. And Pagon gets away with nuggets, J-Mac. Literal nuggets. As Neho now is the target for Relentless One. Bat Out of Hell, 3 swipes, and you're down! A triple kill for Relentless One!
A full house there for Pagon and Relentless One. They get all 5 of those kills themselves, and a Fire Giant on the board. Not to mention, Pagon lives. I don't think there was even a nugget. He had like the crumbs of the nugget left of his health bar onto that one. Somehow Pagon squeaks by, gets out with 2 kills of his own. A triple on Relentless One, just absolutely handling the Fishies in that matchup. The team fight, on paper, in favor of Fishies. You look at that comms and you go, how do they ever lose a team fight? And then you realize they just can't put out the damage. They can't secure that final kill. They can't get Pagon. If they could not kill Pagon, who ulted into the middle of 3 of them and had to stand inside of an experience camp to get out of there, I don't know how they're planning on winning team fights beyond there.
It's just absolutely phenomenal that the amount of body blocking coming out from the Sturdy Artisans, making sure that they stay alive. Relentless One doesn't have a whole lot of mana, but he gets himself knocked away. Relentless One able to leap away and blink away. Kirmi as well getting knocked back, so that was a little bit unfortunate for Oceans, placing those little riptides just a little bit off, and Relentless One just making sure that Oceans doesn't back for free, but doesn't have a whole lot of mana for himself, but he is taking a little bit of poke. Recognizing that, Relentless One is going to get Athena ulted. Cyno's going to come in and blink in. The Wild Hunt comes onto Oceans. Crashing waves of River's Rebuke does fall. That's going to be a 3-man taunt for Ionic.
Why?
There's going to be 1 that falls. So Oceans will fall. Neho's ultimate use on Relentless One. He goes down to half health, but Kirmi just got absolutely obliterated by Pagon. Athena is going to have to back away because it didn't have a whole lot of health, but now they have minions around. Oceans is just making sure that they can't get into it, as Relentless One's going to be able to get a little bit of health for it. Stewart's going to leap in. Desert Fury's going to go on to Renjaro, but Stewart's taking a little bit of health. Shell is popped. They're going to try to just maybe play it a little bit safer now that all those minions are gone. Cyno's taking a lot of damage. He's going to get away again. Kirmi not quite there. Well, will he get away? As here comes Renjaro on this Apollo. He's looking, but he recognized that maybe it might not be the best call. He's trying to see if he can maybe join up with the rest of his team. He's going to come crashing back down on a Phoenix, electing not to be aggressive.
Oh, blink in onto Oceans. He's going to be losing his beads, and Kirmi died to the back. It's blown up by Cyno. What could have been such a great fight for them. They didn't have the kill pressure for it. They tried running forward, but the retreat from Sturdy Artisans, this tactical retreat, so powerful for him, but that Strife is massive, and Chronic slams on the gas pedal.
Well, Relentless One picks up Chronic in response, but that was a big powerhouse player for the Fishies to get. Good target selection from them, recognizing that, but that was a great Strife. Just making sure that they locked in and did damage to each other. But now that's a 3-man taunt. Ultimate coming out from Cyno. He's going to try to see get 1. Stewart will get 1. Cyno will get the other one. 4 members down. Will they be able to get Neho? He will. Relentless One will pick it on. That's a couple of rampages for the Sturdy Artisans. A deicide. Kirmi is up. He's got full health, full mana, ultimate available for him. Will be able to do anything? Will not, as now they're going to elect to go into on him. Going to pop those beads, just make sure, but the taunt coming out, it won't matter. Another deicide for the Sturdy Artisans.
Yeah, I don't know why Fishies think that going in 1 by 1 is going to help them out here. I mean, they're following the Blazy mentality here, which is, oh, you know, if you go in 5 different times, you have 5 chances to win. The problem is, no matter how many chances you throw at Sturdy Artisans, a 1 by 1 against 4 players is not going to get you out of there. Cyno has Lifesteal online with the Bloodforge and the Lifesteal stance in that spring form. I mean, you're not killing Cyno at this point. Ionic is so tanky and has a Staff of Mirrodin now, so if you ever use that ultimate, double taunts available for him on the bottom, and Stewart is 4-slotted at the time being. And Oceans, as soon as he picked up the beads after his last death, had to use them instantly afterward. There is no pressure for this Fishy squad that Sturdy Artisans can heal themselves up with the Fire Giant, with their natural sustain, and well, Pagon's fighting the enemy in their jungle. It's going to take the Golden Apple and an Athena ult to follow back up through, looking for anybody that they can. Ionic is trying to find Neyu and will manage to get him.
Well, Renjaro will pick up that, but Stewart will pick up Kirmi, and Renjaro now is the
God.
target. That's a double kill for Stewart. You want to talk about team fights? This Athena, Ionic on this Athena especially, 2-0 and 17. 19 of the 22 kills that are around. Stewart's going to just stand at the door, making sure anybody wants to come in, and knock, knock, who's there? It's the rest of Sturdy Artisans. They're going to run it down. Chronic the only one left, but Oceans has spawned. He's level 13, but his ultimate is not available for him. Kirmi is going to get absolutely, actually it's Ionic that gets the Sunder for him. Chronic is trying to see if he can do something. Oceans is getting obliterated by this Odysseus bow, but Relentless won't pick him up. Sino is unstoppable. Another DSI. Neho will pick up Sino though, but I think it's too little too late. Bat out of hell expended. The apple coming out. Relentless one gets one. Neho picks up Stewart. The Titans, the only thing that's left. Will they be able to do it? They will, with Relentless one getting a last couple of autos in. Sturdy Artisans pick the set up 2-0.
I guess the one benefit to this little staggered respawn time that they have is they were able to try and make multiple defenses at this Titan, but my biggest problem is you just lost a fight handedly at your own Phoenix with the Phoenix up to help you out. Why are you trying to fight 1 versus 3 in the jungle at this point? You're losing in your own territory under a Phoenix that's helping you. You're not going to have a chance in that jungle, even if you throw 2 people at a hotball. He just soloed your tank. He soloed the tank.
Yeah, Pagon and Eonic, man, that combo was absolutely deadly. Well, folks, that's going to do it for these 2 games, but stick around after this break. The desk will break down the game.
Let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Oh, yeah. In the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this mo, like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat. Let's zone, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Oh. When I reminisce over you, my lordy, rest to make way for my newfound shorty. Checking the mic for ligaments while I reckon. Same time came out the womb while recording. All I ever did was make jokes out of suckers. Told them about the life that I live, mad ruckus. But if you never seen a grown man rock jewelry like me, jealous if it coming over you, then you bite me. All these other people, they be coolin' just like me. Talking about the homies and I usually right beat. Yeah, my crew is off the roof, and I told her not to brag about the crew, even though it's new. Even though it's new. Yeah. In the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this mo, like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat. Let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam.
Well, the Sturdy Artisans make the unconventional conventional, I guess, here in game number 2. Mifflin, this one is somehow less close than game number 1, and somehow the draft feels weirder than it was in game number 1. A 20-minute game 2 comes to a close, and it's the Sturdy Artisans with Kernanos jungle, a Hebo mid, which I guess is less weird than maybe the Kernanos jungle. We got Kamazot's over in solo lane, and 1 win now for the Sturdy Artisans.
Yeah, the Sturdy Artisans looking so good now, topped at the top, or tied at the top of the leaderboard, right at 4-0. Look, these guys, you said make the unconventional look conventional. I'm not sure that I'm willing to give them that just yet. I think that essentially what they're doing is flexing out of their shirts. It just feels like Sino's out there just trying to pop his muscles, saying, look, I don't need to play the good stuff. I'm going to do whatever it is I can, and he certainly does. He's set. Or even Sir Nuno's jungle, occasionally Anubis, so whatever he can to just make us look bad on the desk when we're trying to predict those P's and B's is what he's going to do. But his team is the real deal. The squad around it, despite the picks, plays the meta incredibly well. When they find kills, they go to objectives. When they're done with the objectives, they regroup, and they don't fight over things that aren't there. I really like watching these guys play because they have such a firm grasp of the macro game.
Well, there was more pushback from the Fishies, at least here in this game. Everyone on the Fishies in the kill column, a couple of deaths at least for everyone on the Sturdy Artisans except for Yannick. So most dying in game 1, least dying here in game number 2. Do you think that this is the type of play style, or a type of play style, that'll work whenever the Sturdy Artisan team has to go up against the Tiburones? You get a top-of-the-table matchup, both teams undefeated. You expect to see the Sturdy Artisans maybe buckle down a little bit more then and pick some more standard stuff?
Game 1, I'm going to predict the set. Game 1, they're going to be super, super weird. And if they win, they're going to go even weirder until they eventually do lose. And then they'll play the meta. I think that's my prediction for the Sturdy Artisans.
And we would all be better off for that. I love watching those types of games. Kernos Jungle, why not? Thumbs up for me. Here is your look back at the SCC schedule here in week number 4. Started off with a 2-1 win for Pandemonium, 2-0. And then another 2-1 later on there. Bunch of 2-0s over here in North America. Let's see how that shakes out the standings over in NA. You're going to have 2 teams tied up top, Sturdy Artisans and Tiburones tied up top at 4. And then literally every other team is 1 and 3. Everyone down there beating one another and then losing to the Sturdy Artisans and Tiburones up top. And look, there are 6 teams. All these teams have played 4 games. You need 5 games to complete the round robin. So that must mean the Sturdy Artisans and the Tiburones will be matching up very shortly here, if not next week. So that's definitely one myth I think to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for it. And on the Tiburones, for those who aren't following the SCC super closely, that's going to be Guy, J, Blugan, Spreen, Cope, and Heed. Some SPL talent coming through inside of Guy J, as well as some SCC guys, some SCC lifers, if you would. So those 2 are the top of the leaderboard for North America, and they look so nice.
Well, here you go. It is the schedule for next week, and it is the Sturdy Artisans versus the Tiburones, and you're not going to have to wait long for that undefeated North American matchup. That is happening on Thursday, our third and final matchup on the SCC broadcast. On Thursday will be the Sturdy Artisans up against the Tiburones. Before that, we'll have a couple over in EU, Accounting Department Pandemonium, Elysium just F6. And then we'll sprinkle in EU, NA before the SPL broadcasts later on in that week. So these are pretty telling matchups, Smith. We're finally getting to that point where every team has played every other team, so we're really going to kind of be able to say, well, these guys beat these guys, and really see those standings shake out. So make sure to tune in on Thursday for a lot of fun SEC action. Then, Mifflin, we got a couple more matchups in the SPL before we round out this week in competitive Smite. Bolts versus Valkyries. You and I will be on the cast for that one. And then Leviathans Kings to round out the week. A couple good matchups on this Sunday.
In particular, I'm really excited for the Leviathans versus Kings because I won't have to be casting that one with you, Dave. Just kidding. I love casting with you, Dave. You gotta give me at least a pity smile or a laugh there. Oh yeah, we are gonna be on the desk, but in reality, I am excited to watch the Kings matchup because they looked so good last time we saw them. I think a lot better than maybe people would have expected considering how new this roster is, Dave. I'm so sorry, man. I didn't mean it, bud.
I wish I could make myself cry on demand. I can't do that, but really just break you down here on camera. I agree, though. Leviathan's Kings is going to be an interesting one. You and I will have plenty of time to discuss Bolts and Valkyries once we're in game, but I think that's a sneaky good matchup as well. This Valkyries team, people kind of had middling expectations, I think, if we're going to be totally fair, and they've kind of counteracted a lot of those. They've come out swinging. They've looked pretty good in a couple of their games. This is now an early look at the Bolts. We've only seen them in a game or a set or two here so far, so that one's, I think, pretty fun to look forward to as well, Mifflin. That is all happening at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. The SPL will start up here in about 45 or so minutes. Stick around. We'll see you soon.